I'm Matt Himwood with Main Line Overland, and we're up here in Vermont, about to hit some Class 4 roads with Ridgeback Guide Services leading the way. Vermont's a beautiful place to wheel in the fall, especially like it is now. It can present its own challenges in terms of being extremely slick, following the rain like we recently had up here, so we're dealing with a bunch of mud and slicker trails. Ridgeback Guide Services consists of Ron Harrington and crew. Ron's going to be leading the way today on these Class 4 roads, manning his Jeep JK with suspension kit we recently installed last week.
On trail trying to just get the trucks going. Like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's what it is.
I just launched off my seat.
I was driving our '88 Land Rover Defender 110 3-door. It's got a 200 TDI and a manual transmission. It's got the 5-speed. No lockers, but high and low range. It's got 33-inch mud trains on it, so it's a pretty lightweight, nimble little vehicle.
I'm Pete from Main Line Overland. I run the builds and shop side. I'm running my 2010 Range Rover Sport supercharged that we have 35s and lockers and all the goodies on. Wheeling in Vermont's a little bit different. We've got mud, good off camber, some bigger rocks and slippery rock and leaves, kind of making mild stuff a little bit more challenging. Luckily the Sport has a ton of clearance under the center since we don't have any low-hanging diffs. There's a double-edged sword to that with a bunch of CV axles, but we do what we can.
Also in the lineup is Mike Kelly with his gray Jeep JK. Mike's with Wheelers LLC. He's also a customer of ours. Great guy.
Right there. Come. Keep coming.
Ken with one of our customers. He's got a pretty well-built Disco 2 Land Rover. It's fully locked, pretty well-built vehicle, and he's the original owner.
There you go, Seattle. There you go. Up. There you go, good job, Ken.
We've also got Eric Valdez, who runs our New Hampshire shop. Eric's got his well-built double cab Toyota Tacoma with the Norwell terrain canopy. It's got our GTS suspension system and a number of other bits. Pretty well built, and Eric's a great driver. One of the trails had a tricky ledge section, multiple ledges, and we were going uphill. It got pretty technical, having to bump both front and rear wheels up on two separate ledges at the same time. After a couple of attempts, we decided that it was probably best to just winch it, play it safe, and save the equipment.
Nice. Nice. I like the man who doesn't get nervous. That was aggressive. Terrified.
Also on the trail ride was Mac and Owen of Bound for Nowhere on Instagram. They're customers of ours that we're going to be doing a build for. They came down from up in Newfoundland and northern Canada to come down to Vermont with us for the weekend to ride along for the fun.
Running the trails in Vermont is nice, just the scenery, the places you can stop along the way. We're traveling on public roads that sometimes go through some private land, so It's interesting. You feel like you're really traveling.
That's it. Keep going, going up, keep going. When I tell you drive like that, you drive like that.
One of our customers, Ken, with the Disco 2, was having some trouble with his four-wheel drive system, and upon further inspection, it looked like he had snapped an axle shaft, the rear axle shaft. So essentially, he was in two-wheel drive for the rest of the day.
In the Disco 2, you can get a clean brake. It seems like that's what happened for him. So he's able to continue to drive because there was no, bearing or kind of major issue. He was able to kind of claw his way through most of it, but we did have to give him some tugs with our kinetic rope up over some of the trickier obstacles. We used some of our soft shackles and our 30-foot kinetic rope just to be able to give ourselves some distance and some extra energy to give him a tug. And in the short distance, we were able to gain some momentum.
Attention.
Kinetic rope takes advantage of stored energy, works it to your benefit versus a static pull where you can have an issue and transmit that to someone
right to the back end
spectating.
there. Make sure you get over that last pile of rocks.
Watch your roof on this.
On one of the uphill off-camber sections with some tree roots we were dealing with, the wheels were spinning, we were just making no progress, and in some cases slipping backwards.
Any trees on my back corner? No, you're good. Just be careful of Mike behind you.
He's giving you plenty of space. Stay all right.
Take it high and bounce off the tree with your front tire, Take my arm off.
After a few attempts, decided that discretion was the better part of valor and got Mike Kelly to get ahead of me through a bypass on the trail. And then hook up a tow strap to snatch me out of there.
We were pulling Ken up a trail after he'd broken his axle shaft, and there were several rigs coming down the trail that we were trying to get through so they could continue their descent. And there was a particularly stepped obstacle. Yeah, limit strap snapped, allowed the driver front wheel to kind of hyperextend and dislocate the axle at the diff side. Unfortunately, while locked.
Hey, go, 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 go!
See the axle?
Crunched all the little needle bearings and everything inside. Immediately made a pretty nasty noise.
Stay there. Stay right with me.
Luckily, since we were locked, we still had kind of a effective three-wheel drive, even four-wheel drive, just making an awful noise, and then we're able to kind of limp it out of the trail with some pretty awful noises. You don't always carry spares on the trail, but the group that we run with generally will push the trucks a little harder, so a broken axle shaft isn't uncommon.
He's a Shiloh Shepherd, so he's supposed to go down here.
I was also going to say
It's a little bit different with a CV axle where things are generally breaking at the joint instead of at the shaft. And you can continue to drive, but you're definitely putting a little bit more wear on the vehicle without changing it quickly.
I heard that Mustang is going on.
It's like, if you guys made it tomorrow at all?
Wow, that's smooth, man. I think there was a problem before you had today. It's so much smoother than it is. His rear view mirrors actually adjust when he puts it into reverse.
Beyond the awesome Class 4 trails that Vermont has to offer, it was really the charm and the overall experience that we had here in Vermont.
So he's a trail dog.
Yeah, I know.
You've got Vermont country stores in every small little town, beautiful architecture, the changing of the leaves at that time, good food, good beer, friendly people. It's got a lot to offer and a lot of nooks and crannies that are worth exploring.